to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from here, and this has been like a therapy session.
This is Omar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. I'm joined by Queensbury's Dev Sahni. I'm not going to mess about. We're only here for one reason. Everyone in boxing over the last couple of days is talking about that interview Tyson Fury did with True Geordie. Of course, specifically the ending and what Benson put out. But I want to get your thoughts on the content of the interview and, just your initial thoughts on that interview, please, Dev.
Firstly, you asked me for the interview, right?
Yes.
Right. So I'd be like, I have to go and defend Tyson Fury. So the end of the interview, which is, him saying all these different names, it felt like it was in good humour until the very end. That was my perception of it. But calling him bald, calling him bearded, and whilst being bald and previously having a beard yourself is kind of joking. There's a bit of a glint in his eye. He's called Lou DiBella bald in the past as well. It seems to be something that he does to fellow bald people. So I think that's just fine. I think maybe when True Geordie was saying, "Oh, do you know how to turn it off?" By the way, when he was saying that probably irritated Tyson. Where at the very end, it probably was a little bit annoyed. That's fine. In terms of the actual content of the interview itself, there's nothing wrong with asking Tyson Fury why he's going to fight Derek Chisora. Any journalist or interviewer worth their salt is going to be asking these questions. That's fine. I think the problem was he started it off by asking about KSI and then Conor Benn, and Tyson Fury is the news. He's not someone with a small profile that you try to attach to a bigger story to build them up kind of thing. He is the story. So when he's being asked about what do you think of KSI, even though the whole Tommy Fury thing, that's all fine. Just ask later in the interview. Ask him first, like how's camp going, or tell us about the fight, or whatever. Just something like this. Just kind of set the table a little bit. So I think he put his back up a little bit with some of that. There's nothing wrong with again asking about the fight and why he's fighting him, but I feel as though he went in with the agenda to really be the one to stick it on Tyson and ask him all the questions that no one's asking and be seen as that guy. But he was just sort of telling him in 10 or 15 different ways that he didn't like the fight. He's going around the house, he's asking all these different varieties of ways of doing it, but that's essentially what he was getting at. And I mean, how much of that do you need to hear if you're Tyson Fury? What's Tyson getting out of the interview? It's just the guy telling you in various different ways that it's a shit fight. Like, I'm surprised he hung around until the very end of it. I mean, he didn't really get much out of it.
I mean, you do interviews day to day, so do I, and there is no set method to interviewing. There's no right or wrong, but I was trying to explain this to people online and they weren't really grasping it. They were coming back at me and saying, well, all you do is speak to people about things that aren't related to them. But I said, they're not the WBC heavyweight world champion in the middle of camp who's voluntarily given time to do an interview. And you're right, when you are that much of a figure and you're preparing for a fight, a pay-per-view fight, defending your world title, as I said, there's no wrong or right method to do it. But if you start with two subjects that have nothing to do with you and then want to grill him, you're half asking for an agitated response. Is that fair?
Yeah, look, there's nothing wrong with asking him about KSI. Nothing wrong with that at all. We've just seen, like, Anthony Joshua's done an interview on DAZN and he's asked about KSI. Not at the very start of the interview. At the very start of the interview, it's like, how are you? How's your head? Like, that kind of thing. You set it up a little bit. The fact that he just went straight in with KSI was obviously, I don't know if it was in his intention to create a viral moment with Tyson Fury or not, but he got one. And you could tell he was essentially getting at the same thing over and over again. And starting with KSI didn't feel the best way to start. But look, he's been interviewing for a long time as well. I haven't seen too many of his other ones, but he's a big name, so you know I'm sure he's good at it. So that's what threw me off a little bit, the fact that he started with that. And Tyson's he is the news. You don't need to attach him to make news.
So, Dev, obviously, no secret you work for Queensbury, but just take that element
Who told
out.
you that?
Huh?
Who told you? Who's been saying that?
Well, you definitely don't work for Matt from a boxer. That, I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
If you were interviewing Tyson Fury for your own channel, okay, your independent channel, you're working for someone else, you don't work for Frank, how would you interview Tyson about this trilogy with Derek Chisora? How would you go about it?
Yeah, look, I think, again, there's nothing wrong with asking him, why are you fighting Derek Chisora? This has been the fans' response to you fighting Derek Chisora, and getting him to kind of justify it, that's fine. But when he's already explained the justification of, look, I wanted to fight Usyk, I couldn't get him. I wanted to fight Joshua, I couldn't get him. It looks like I'm fighting Usyk early next year. So I've got to have a fight. He's only fought once in 2020, once in 2021, once in 2022. And it's being treated like this Chisora fight is the end goal, and he'll never fight again. Like it's Chisora forever. Like it's not. It's just Chisora. Hopefully he comes through, and then he'll fight Usyk in the first part of next year. What would I have done differently to True Geordie? Everyone's got their own styles of interviewing. Just would have started off by asking about Tyson Fury. You bring the other stuff in later. You talk about the fight. But yeah, I'm different to True Geordie, and True Geordie's a True Geordie, and he's got a big fan base and that. So I just don't know if he'll get Tyson Fury again. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I think just lastly on this, you do make a good point. It feels like the way people are talking, it's like Tyson said this is the last fight, and then he's bowing out. People are forgetting he's just boxed his mandatory WBC #1 contender in April. This is a voluntary defense, and Chisora is ranked in the WBC. And then he's telling you he's going to do the undisputed fight in February or March. So from that point of view, you can understand Tyson's frustration about 15 questions about the same thing.
About the same thing, just and then bringing in stats about he's lost 50% of his last 15 fights, bringing in all these kind of things, saying, I don't know, and that's where Tyson actually started defending Derek Chisora. What a strange place to be, where you're having to actually like big up this guy. And I think he felt a bit sort of offended on Chisora's behalf. Some of the energy with which the questions were being asked, some of the statements like saying, "Oh, Chisora, we've just seen him battered by Joseph Parker," like using emotive language like that. It's going to cause a bit of irritation, isn't it? But yeah, it's kind of being seen as like this is it, and then he's just going to bow out. But he's not. There is Usyk, and he's talked about fighting Joe Joyce as well after that. Like there's big fights ahead. Just needs to get past Chisora first. And if he hadn't already boxed him twice, there probably wouldn't be much or any backlash at all. And the thing I'd say is that they are different fighters to what they were 8 years ago. Tyson doesn't move like that anymore. And Chisora's now War Chisora. So we shall see. It could be a different fight. And look, his style now, Fury's style now, actually lends itself a bit better to Chisora, because Chisora's not going to have to go looking for him. Still expect Fury to win. Like, be an absolute disaster if he lost to Derek Chisora at this point. But it could be, in my opinion, the most entertaining fight of the three.
Okay, we shall see. I think just to sum it all up, it's fair enough, more than fair enough to say it's not the fight we wanted to see. But you have to put things into perspective, and you have to go along the timeline and see the Usyk fight was tried to be made, the Joshua fight was tried to be made, and they didn't come off. And yeah, commercially, Chisora is a big name still. So as a tune-up fight going into an undisputed fight, this is what it is.
The other point I'd make just on that quickly, the other point I'd make is the names that they are talking about. Oh, why didn't Fury fight Kosabutsky or Mac Malev? These guys in the WBC top 15. Why didn't he fight these guys instead? You can't conclusively, hand on your heart, tell me that those guys beat Derek Chisora. So with that in mind, Derek Chisora might beat these unproven guys. This Mulev guy, he beat Takam on points, I understand. Chisora knocked out Takam. So there's things like that as well. Chisora is coming off a career best win as well, and I feel as though that's being overlooked somewhat. I'm sure if he'd have lost to Pulev, he wouldn't be in the running for this fight.
Yeah, you have to be realistic. Is Tyson Fury voluntarily going to give his title shot to Kosabutsky or Chisora? You have to put things into perspective. Just before we close off, there have been some claims that Tyson Fury's lost his head. He's trying to stay relevant. He needs to sell tickets. In terms of the end of that interview, your thoughts?
I don't think you should be. I don't think anyone should be saying Tyson Fury's lost his head, considering the issues that Tyson Fury has had and has every day. I think that's slightly in poor taste to say that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of selling tickets are selling very, very well. Like, that place will be rammed out on fight night. So I don't think it's a case of he's done that to sell tickets. In terms of staying relevant, I mean, he is the most relevant heavyweight in the world. Everything that he is doing is news right now. And him having a little back and forth with True Geordie at the end of an interview, we're talking about it. It's trickling down. Like, it's so there's nothing about staying relevant there. I didn't like the lost his head comments, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Tyson Fury is always in the news.
Okay, Dev, Sahni, thank you very much for your time, and yeah, I will surely speak to you soon. I'm sure you're IFL regular nowadays.
What did you think, by the way? I haven't had the headset on today because I was looking at screenshots from ones you've done with me before, and it just looked like I was in the call center. So got to be careful with that. Got to be careful. So I've gone with just like no headset now.
Well,
yeah.
The audio is crystal clear, so maybe just go without the headsets from now on.
I think so too, Mark.
I think you're good.
I think so too.
All right, mate. Speak soon.
See you later, mate.
I'm going to share something with you that might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something, completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from it, and this has been like a therapy session.